How to invest intelligently in real estate in 2021. That's the topic for today's episode. And without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and happy 2021 for those who have been following Novarise Invest for quite some time. And if you're new to the channel, welcome, and also happy 2021. So today's episode will be all about what's happening in the market. This is actually the first episode of the year, and I wanted to start up strong by giving you a quick update and also as a follow-up to a couple of episodes that I've actually launched a couple of weeks ago. And for those who have no idea which episodes I'm talking about, I'm basically referring to these ones in particular. One is benefit from the downturn, and the other one is don't buy real estate. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to jump straight into the first article that I wanted to talk to you about today. And that's this one on the Wall Street Journal that talks about the eviction moratorium, right? Now, you might be wondering, okay, what does the eviction have to do with real estate at all? Don't worry, we'll eventually get to it, right? But just to do a quick recap, in my prior episode, I actually talked about how within a couple of months, maybe sooner rather than later, or maybe later than we think, we will potentially see foreclosures coming up because of the issue of mortgage forbearance and people not paying the rent. So here we're looking at an article talking about how the U.S. was actually looking to expand the eviction moratorium beyond the original date of January 31st, right? And I mean, this is a very unfortunate situation and where everyone is being impacted, especially those who don't have access to the financial means necessary to cover the rent. Once again, this is a two-way street, right? Yes, it's bad for the families who don't have a place to stay, but it's also a very unfortunate situation for the landlords because they're also put in a financial constraint. They do have a mortgage that they need to cover, and by them not having the ability to collect rent can also impact them, not only in terms of losing the properties, but also impacting their credit because there's a mortgage attached to their names as well. So, what the government decided to do is just to see, what the progress of the pandemic was and see what they could do about everything that was happening. And it was announced recently that there will be an extension on the residential evictions for many reasons, right? One, to prevent the further spread of COVID. Imagine the amount of people being in homeless shelters or just wandering around the street, exposing themselves to the COVID and at the same time getting the COVID or getting the COVID themselves and then exposing other people to the COVID. That's one. And two, while nobody wants to be homeless during the holidays, we're talking about Christmas and New Year's, it's horrible to have that feeling, hey, am I going to get kicked out of my apartment, kicked out of my home if I don't make rent this month? And so nobody wanted to see that. Nobody wanted to put themselves through that situation. So depending on the state that you're in, and so I have this article right here, for example, in New York, lawmakers, they passed the 4th month eviction moratorium, and we're talking about tenants having the ability to prevent or suspend their evictions proceeding until March 1st, as you can see here in this article, right? So once again, what does that mean for you as a real estate investor? So it can mean many things, right? So one of them is like, well, now if you are getting ready to buy, getting ready to invest in the market, you'll have to wait until May 1st to see what happens. Are they going to extend this moratorium again, or is it coming due and we're going to see a wave of evictions happening? And what does it mean for housing demand, and what does that even mean for the person who's owning that investment property? Is he or she or they going to be able to continue to meet their mortgage payments now that they don't have a tenant, and there could be a couple of months behind because their prior tenants were not paying rent, right? So back in the prior video, we talked about, hey, the possibility for this to accelerate, for this to take a little longer. Now, 1 month later after that release, now we're seeing, hey, there has been an extension and we just need to be patient and wait a little bit more to see what's happening with the market. Are the prices going up or going down? Are they dropping? And it seems that at least in New York, things are going to remain pretty much intact in terms of the eviction moratorium all the way until May 1st, right? Added to that, to everything that's been happening to the pandemic, we also have the issue for the mortgage forbearance, right? So for those who have been following this channel for quite some time, you might remember an episode where I actually talked about the CARES Act and the existence of the mortgage forbearance program. What does that mean for you, right? So the mortgage forbearance was actually put in place to help homeowners to get some kind of a break, so to speak, in the event that you face cut hours in your job. Maybe you used to work 40 hours a week and now you're working only 20 or 15. And yes, you're making money, but whatever you're making is still not enough to meet all your needs. Or maybe you lost your job and now you're faced with the decision, okay, what do I do? Am I going to lose my home because I'm not paying my mortgage? And so the mortgage forbearance program came in place to allow people the flexibility to take breaks, either to just simply negotiate with the bank and take or make lesser payments, or just simply not pay at all and just simply postpone your mortgage payments until 12 months, 6 months. Some banks even offer 18 months of a mortgage forbearance period. So for the most part, most banks were offering a 12-month period. So what this article is saying from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is just basically stating that, hey, you do have the possibility to request for an extension if you have a federally or a GSE backed mortgage. What does that mean? It just simply means that it is a mortgage that is backed by a government sponsored enterprise. So what is an example of those type of mortgages? Mortgages like the FHA loans or mortgages like the veterans loan. Those are loans that are actually backed by the government. So they tend to have a little bit more flexibility on that end. And you can request up to an additional 180 days if you have one of those mortgages. Now, if you have a private mortgage, let's say we're talking about banks like Chase or the Bank of Americas of the world, there is a chance that they might not be flexible. Who knows? They may or may not, but they're not making that information publicly available. So you're going to have to reach out to your lender and find out what's happening in the event that you do need to apply for an extension on your forbearance. If not, then what does that mean for you as an investor? Well, as a homeowner, you know that you could be facing foreclosure, but for those who are investors, this is your opportunity to come in and offer a win-win situation to those homeowners by just simply negotiating with them and see what you can do so you can get access to the home and then helping them not have their credit negatively impacted, right? So now we have two key areas of consideration depending on the type of investment that you're looking to make. If you're looking to get access to residential homes or looking for homes to flip eventually, this is your opportunity to work with those homeowners who are facing an expiration on their forbearance program. But if you are looking at properties that have tenants in there, and what does it mean for you as a real estate investor? Depending on the moratorium period, you might have to wait a little longer. Now, moving on with the articles, we are going to move on to another one that talks about jobs. Now, you might be wondering, okay, what does jobs have to do with anything? Well, let's just put it this way. If there are no jobs, there's no money. And if there's no money, there's no rent to pay, no rent to collect, and no houses for people to buy because they need jobs, right? So a couple of months ago, I talked a lot and I mentioned over and over again about the migration pattern. And finally, there's an article out there that talks about that shift of employment. A lot of people talk about job losses, but in reality, those jobs were in essence just simply replaced. Yeah, there were job losses in bars and restaurants, but those jobs are actually replaced by people who work in the courier services and the messenger services. An example of those companies are UPS or Amazon, who were hiring drivers and delivery people nonstop because they needed to meet a demand caused by the COVID, people that face fears in terms of leaving their house, seniors who were unable to leave their homes because, they were at the highest risk of getting exposed. And at the same time, we were talking about the holidays, Christmas presents, holiday shopping, and gifts here, gifts there. People deciding to not to meet over the holidays, but sending holiday presents to their families and close friends. So just basically put a strain on the demand. And whatever jobs that were kind of like lost in the entertainment area, we're talking about restaurants, theater, movie theaters, even shopping centers, they just in essence got replaced by the digital world, by the non-contact world. So what does that mean for you, right, as a real estate investor? Well, I mean, think about this. What are the type of companies that are looking to hire for courier services? We're talking about UPS, we're talking about FedEx, we're talking about Amazon, we're talking about Walmart. So that means that there are going to be demand for residential housing nearby those areas. Anything that's nearby a warehouse, anything nearby a Walmart, because people still need to get to work. So yes, there might have been a shift of people who used to live in areas nearby restaurants because they needed to be in close proximities to their jobs, but now that shift has been moved over there. So that's on the residential side. If you're a real estate investor investing on the residential side, but if you're investing on the commercial side, hey, now there's even more demand for warehouses. There's even more demand for commercial spaces because the big Amazon of the world and the big Walmarts of the world are going to want to come in and rent some of the areas because they need space. And on top of that, there was a very interesting article that I saw in this very same article that talks about e-commerce, how the pandemic helped speed Americans and the embracement of the digital commerce. So if you have to think about the broader picture, what does it mean for you, right? So what do digital business owners do, right? They work from home because now you don't have to go to an office anymore. That's what makes it digital. And what does it mean when you go digital? That means you can work basically from anywhere in the world. So you are not confined to the proximity to your office space. So for example, if you lived in New York and you had to commute, for your 9 to 5, now you don't have to worry about that because your 9 to 5 is literally your couch or your living room or your same bed. All you got to do is just to wake up, grab your computer and just, push your business going forward. So as the business eventually evolves, what do you think you're going to need? You're going to need more space because now you're going to have to take conference calls. Maybe your spouse also decided to launch their online business, or maybe you have family members, your kids are at home and there's too much noise, and therefore there's a demand for much a bigger space because you cannot be confined to your apartment in New York City anymore because there's too many people talking at the same time. There are your kids having online classes, or if you don't have kids, you probably have a spouse. And even if you don't have a spouse, you might be considering the possibility of having a bigger space because you don't want to mix your bed with business and yada yada, right? So overall, for those who are investing on the residential side, once again, now you're going to see more opportunities to provide housing that, one, is more affordable because once you start investing outside of the big cities, the properties become a lot more affordable, and also you get more bang for your buck in the sense that you're getting more space and you can actually rent those out for those who are dedicating their entire careers to the digital commerce. At the same time, if you have an online business that is dedicated to provide a certain product, what else do you think you're going to need? Well, inventory, right? You're going to need inventory. You're going to need space for inventory. If you're starting off, you might use your house as an existing inventory, maybe your garage, but it's going to get to a point where you're going to grow so much that, hey, you might have a demand for a warehouse. And that's when those commercial real estate investors come in and say, hey, I have a warehouse for you. So if you're not sure exactly, let's say, where to find those warehouses, just look at the digital commerce. Just look at what online businesses have actually taken off and their need for inventory. And that's how you can position yourself in a way that you can actually win in spite of everything that it's going on, in spite of everything. Generally, the news like to showcase everything that's negative. But if you look close enough, if you read in between the lines, you're going to realize, hey, things are not so bad if I manage to think creatively and seek for opportunities. Remember, Uber was created in the middle of 2008, and look at where they are right now. Amazon was actually created right after the .com business fiasco, and look at where they are today. So look at the opportunities. Don't let the negative vibe cloud you. There are opportunities everywhere you look. You just have to look closely and with good attention, right? So as you scroll down, once again, courier and messenger jobs, they have increased more than 20%. And warehouse jobs stumble early, but then they recoup. And as you scroll down in this article, there is one area where I wanted to focus your attention on, and that's here on the real estate sector. So let me highlight this here. So as you can see here, it talks about real estate sector has largely recovered from spring losses amid a housing boom. In contrast, leasing offices shed more than 20% of the jobs and have been slow to add them back. Remember, always look at things on the positive side, glass half full and not half empty. In my prior episode, I talked about possible opportunities for leasing offices because, hey, they might be not enough people wanting to come back to the offices anymore. But hey, you can tap into those office spaces. You can tap into that hotel business that it's probably struggling right now to stay afloat because of the lack of tourism. And you can turn those into residential areas and market it for the digital business owners who is looking to get a bigger space, but maybe they don't want to necessarily leave New York City or leave certain spaces because they just simply like the area and they want to stay, but they have a demand for a much bigger space. You can turn those into warehouses for those people who need the warehouses nearby the suburban areas. Like, for example, people who are still remaining in New York, they also have demands for Amazon products to be delivered to them. They also don't want to get out of their homes because, hey, they don't want to expose themselves to the COVID and they want to get access to products being delivered to the comfort of their home. So always look closely. And as I expand this article right here, this we already know. We knew there was a housing boom. But here's the twist. Because there's a housing boom, there's not enough supply of housing in the market. And now there's also a shortage of land to build new homes because of the increased demand. If we wanted to get creative, once again, back to this article right here, hey, you might not have a land. And if you bought a land, well, great timing for you to sell. But if you never got the opportunity to get your hands on a land, now, once again, we're talking about office spaces, we're talking about hotels, and this is a great opportunities for you to supply something that could help with the shortage and create the housing that everyone is demanding for, right? UPS, I just wanted to show this article. Like I said, I've talked about this a few times. It's more of a migration, a shift in jobs, more so than the loss of jobs. And here is another article to just simply prove that. UPS slaps shipping limits on Gap, Nike to manage e-commerce surge. We're talking about jobs here, right? So there's a lot of demand. And UPS, as hard as they try, same thing with Amazon, they were facing a dilemma with people who were lucky enough to get access to the stimulus, and they were able to make a decision. Hey, do I want to just live off of the stimulus check and be comfortable enough so that way I am not exposing my health to what could be happening out there and exposing myself to getting sick? Or do I want to go out there, maybe make a little bit of money or maybe make a little bit less, but I am exposing my health to the COVID. And hey, at the end of the day, health is really important. So these companies were also facing the demand versus supply issue because now there was a lot of demand, but not enough people to make the deliveries on time. And the deal with UPS is, hey, if you see a UPS nearby, that means there are going to be jobs nearby. And that also could translate to, hey, people are going to be able to afford to rent or afford to buy a home in that area, right? Now, moving along, but before we do that, do not forget to hit the like button right here so you can help this episode rank and help other people like you who are looking to get access for information. And if you're finding this content extremely valuable, also, do not forget to share this episode with some of your friends, with your family members who you think can benefit from the content that we are sharing today. Our mission in Novarise is to educate, educate, educate. And this is your chance, your opportunity to also contribute to the mission of Novarise. Now, moving along, let's talk about small businesses. How is that important? What does that have to do with real estate? Well, everything is the domino effect, believe it or not, right? So in this article, we're talking about how new small business stimulus plan fails to address fraud risk. And as some of you might have seen in the news, some companies really took advantage of the stimulus plan. And with that, they actually made it a lot difficult for other businesses who were truly struggling to get access to these fundings. Some big companies out there were applying for these loans even though they didn't really need the money. But because of that, the government agencies became a lot more strict in terms of qualifying businesses to get access to this funding. And what does that translate to? Well, if you are a business who truly needed the money and you didn't get the money, your savings can only take you that far, right? And what does that mean? Well, It not only means that the business has a possibility to close, but it also means a loss of jobs in the area. So what does it mean for you as a real estate investor? Well, if you're looking to invest in commercial spaces, hey, this is your opportunity because sooner rather than later, you're going to see a vacant sign in a business. And if you're looking to invest in a residential area, you need to watch out for those areas because, well, if there are no jobs, there's a higher chance that your tenant might not be able to pay for the rent. So this is definitely a great article. Feel free to check it out. I'll leave the link down below in the description box so you can read it at your discretion. And moving along, U.S. home price growth accelerated in October. That's no news to any one of us who have been in this channel for quite some time. I just wanted to share another article to sort of like corroborate what I was talking about. I've been hearing a lot of comments of people saying, well, houses are still too expensive because of the availability of cheap money. Everyone wants to be a real estate investor. Everyone is buying, yada, yada. Is there any other alternative for me to get into real estate? And yes, there is one. And here's an article to prove that for you from scottmanguy.com. And it's about manufactured home communities, right? According to what I found in this article, they're saying here that it's a viable investment even during the pandemic. And the key points that they talked about is that MCH have stable occupancy rates and low performance, and the typical MHC has lower tenant turnover than an apartment complex and other multifamily properties. So just to explain you how MHCs work, I have a article right here just to kind of like explain you the difference. So an MHC is a manufactured home, and a lot of people use manufactured homes and mobile homes interchangeably. So in a way, they're kind of like the same thing, but not really according to the law. So I have a quick Google search here just to, help you understand the differences between the two. So they're both regulated by HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Division of the federal government. And what makes the difference between a manufactured home and a mobile home is that a manufactured home, a factory-built home prior to June 15, 1976, it's considered a mobile home. And anything that's built after June 15, 1976 is considered a manufactured home, okay? So now that we got that clear, let's come back to this article and let's focus on this point right here. The typical MHC has lower tenant turnover than apartment complexes and other multifamily properties. So what does it mean for you? Okay, think about this way. When you have a manufactured home, you have to assemble it. Whenever you move, that means you're going to have to deassemble the entire thing. It's not the same thing as when you're living in an apartment or a house and you pack your things in a couple of boxes and you put everything in a truck. Even though that's a lot of work, it is relatively easy than moving your entire home. So for the most part, people who choose to live in manufactured homes, they have a less chance of wanting to move out because once you're set, right? So what does it mean for you as a real estate investor? As a real estate investor, you invest in the land, right? You purchase the land, you build the infrastructure. We're talking about plumbing or whatever is it that is necessary. And you're just simply renting the lot. Just think of it as a parking space that you're renting out for people. So you're renting out the lot. You don't have to worry about the roof going bad. You don't have to worry about the walls getting damaged anymore because all you have to worry about is just to make sure that the land is there, that you collect rent, and that the infrastructure that you build is actually performing, right? So this is definitely an article worth to consider for you. And this also addresses the issue that's been happening with affordable housing. With more and more people losing their jobs, there is less of a chance for people to afford apartment complexes or maybe homes, and more families are looking to, hey, make their money's worth. And especially if you're down to maybe one source of income or just, government funding, just, the stimulus check. So you definitely want to make your money's worth, right? Now, moving along. We have this one last article right here. In reality, this article doesn't really have much to do with investing in general, but it's more on an ethical side. We're all here at the beginning of 2021. It's January 1st. And yes, 2020 has been a very interesting year for quite a lot of us. But at the end of the day, we always have to be grateful for what we have. And we have to be mindful that the COVID-19 virus doesn't really discriminate regardless of your socioeconomical status, right? You could be really good today, and then the next day you can just simply have nothing. And always remember that there are people who could be in worse situations that you are. So this article in general talked about how 3 families had been impacted in multiple ways. So we have the example of this couple right here, the Mallons. They were fortunate enough to have the opportunity to continue with their jobs and have the flexibility to work from home. And if anything, they were able to afford a vacation home and be able to continue with the businesses and whatever it is that they're doing comfortably aside or away from all the noise and be close enough to their parents in the event that they needed something. That's really good for them. I'm really happy for them. Let's just send them positive energy as well so that they continue to do well, right? But on the other hand, we're talking about other families right here. So we have Melina Rodriguez, who eventually got her hours cut down in their job, and eventually, she decided to, okay, do I want to wait for the worst to happen, or do I just give all I got and just simply, become a business owner? And here she decided to start a daycare center in Miami in the middle of all the pandemic. It seems, according to this article, that she is, taking it day by day. Things seem to be doing okay for her, but hey, it doesn't discriminate. Everybody got impacted. Some better than the other, some worse than the other. But she has her business, and she's trying to propel herself going forward. But for some others, things really got complicated. For example, for Maria Patton, she used to be a nanny in LA. And not only did she lost her job, but she eventually got divorced and she wound up losing her home. And to add more to her struggles, her son has Asperger's syndrome, which is known as a neurodevelopmental disorder characterized by significant difficulties in social interaction and nonverbal communication. So we're talking about a woman who was left with pretty much nothing, lost her job. And added to that, there's also the difficulties with her son's situation. And they were moving from motel to hotel until they eventually wind up just moving into their cars, and they just have to go all around the day looking for a safe parking spot to just leave the cars and have the ability to sleep in the car and push their seats down. And she always sleeps in fear of being attacked. So let's just send the best wishes for Maria and hope for the best. Hopefully the situation changes. Why am I sharing this with you guys? You might be wondering. We were talking about investment, and now we're getting into something that is ethical. We are here in Novarise, again, to better the lives of all of you. And our mission is to educate everybody. And it's within us to be ethical once we grow as real estate investor. What can we do to make this world better? How can we help other people so they can have a better life in their future so that they don't have to face the situation that Maria is facing right now? So always be grateful for what you have, and always remember that there could be people who are in worse situation than you. By that, I'm not saying you should feel ashamed of what you have. Celebrate what you have, and also focus on what you have, and think about how can I make things better for myself and also for other people as well. So that's pretty much all I have for you today. And while I still have you here, don't forget to check this episode right here. That's going to help you complement everything that you learned today. And until then, happy 21, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care. Bye-bye.